Hi everyone, and welcome to another Gaffer and Gear. If you own expensive Dedo lights but can't afford all the accessories, or you can't afford the expensive Dedo light and you're looking for a low cost alternative, well, today's episode is for you. We're having a look at the Godox S30 and all of its accessories. The accessories are absolutely top quality. Have a look at this. There is absolutely no color fraying in that projector. And here's what super excites me about these. Not only do these fit Dedo lights, and not only are they optically superb, but they are just under 1/3 the price. All right, so before we get into talking about the light and talking about the accessories, just one thing I want to point out is in the description down below, there'll be an index so you can skip to sections that interest you. All right, so let's have a quick overview of the accessories before we get to the light. So look, barn doors. So you're probably thinking, why am I showing you barn doors, right? If you own Dedolight DLED Turbo 7s, no doubt at some point with their barn doors, you've had to do a slash and you've discovered that the barn doors don't cut the entire width of the beam. So that's really frustrating. Well, the Godox barn doors are way bigger. So, you know, that's something to consider. Other things, they've got little gel kits. So not a big, huge, thrilling thing for me because I've got gels by the roll. So I just use offcuts for my small lights. But if you're starting out, that's pretty cool. The next item is very much of interest to me. Wire kits, Scrim kits, and they're all really high quality. These cost next to nothing. I've seen them advertised as low as 44 bucks. So, you know, proper wire scrims, that's thirds, okay? So I couldn't justify buying one Scrim kit, one for my Dedo kit. I own six Dedo lights. I couldn't justify one. Now I can justify one per light. Of course, what you're all interested in is the projector mount. Now the projector mount also has 3 lenses, so it comes with a 85. You can get, I think it's a 63, let's have a look. Yeah, 63, that goes wider. And the thing I'm really excited about is the Telephoto. Okay, so this is a 150 mil, so this is for projecting long distances, getting long throws. You've got, you know, an 18 leaf iris, okay, which is super smooth. And of course, the cutter blades. Yeah, unfortunately they did copy Dedo with these, or Dedolight with these, so I hate using these things. They've also got a pretty good gel holder. Oh, here it is. I actually do like the gel holder. So it just unscrews, and your M series Gobo fits in. So I think that's probably worth buying if you've even got Dedolight projectors. This is so much easier to get the Gobos in and out than the square holder that comes with the Dedo lights. All right, so let's start off looking at the light. I think it's really good value. It sells for about $400 to $420 in Australia. That's Australian dollars. That might seem like a lot of money for a small light, but it does have very high quality light coming out of it, which we'll talk about in a sec. I'm not sure what the US price is. I think that'd be about $200 to $250 at a guess. I mean, it depends on if your president's tweeted a new tariff. But I can't actually find a price online at the moment because it's sold out. It doesn't seem like you can get them in the US at the moment. They're just gone. So that's a good sign that they're popular and they're quality. But let's get into the negatives first because I only really have 2 negatives with these. But depending on the type of work you do, those negatives could be deal breakers. So the first one is the cooling fan, so you can probably hear it. I think if you're about, say, you know, this sort of distance away, I don't think it's going to be an issue. But where I would be nervous about it, all my years of experience working with sound recordists, if I was doing, say, a corporate interview and we had 4 of these in the room, 3 or 4 of them, I would have a very nervous eye on the sound recordist because I reckon it would be getting borderline. The other problem with the fan is it's thermostat controlled, so it's not consistent. So it seems to run for a couple of minutes and then turn off, check the temperature and then fire up again. So it's not a consistent buzz. So that's something that could be a problem. The next thing I don't like about the unit, or I think is a big negative, is running it off batteries. Okay, so this thing runs off Sony batteries, the NPFs, I think they're called. And it can also run, well, this is sort of clever, it can also run off USB power. So that might be handy if you're a documentary filmmaker or something like that. USB power packs for phones, you can pretty much get them anywhere. But here's the negative. When you run this thing off batteries, it only runs at a maximum of 1/3 brightness. So if you're looking for a high-powered battery light, then this thing's out of the equation for you. Okay, so let's get into the positives of this fixture. So in order to do that, we have to start talking about the boring stats first, because the stats actually are why this thing is so good. All right, so this thing's daylight only, 5,600 Kelvin is what they claim. So when I metered it, it came in at 5,610 Kelvin. If you're fairly new to the industry, what that means is if you've got your camera set to daylight, this unit won't be warm or it won't be cool. It'll be, pure white. Now, warmer and cooler is only half of the equation to getting pure light. The other half of the equation is it above or below the Planckian curve? Is it green or pink? So this unit comes in very, very close to the Planckian curve. It comes in at 7 DUV increments under. Now, to give you some idea, the lightest correction gel is 24 increments equivalent. So this thing is almost spot on pure white. Now, in terms of color rendition scores, this thing has a TLCI score of 98. However, color vector testing reveals a more accurate score would be 92. Now, 92 doesn't sound as sexy as 98, but let's put that into some sort of perspective. The highest color rendering light I've come across for an LED is a 96, and I've only come across 2 of those. So basically, this thing has a really, really pure white point, and then it builds healthy color rendition on top of that, which is why I think it's good value. Now, on top of that, that's only half the story. The other half of the story for this thing is the optics. So basically, it's got a condenser lens, much like a Dedo. It's very similar to Dedo optics. So how does it compare to a Dedolight or a Dedolight in terms of its optical quality? So here's the best way I can figure to explain it. Here's the highest quality Fresnel you can get. Here's a Dedolight. This thing is about here. Okay, they haven't got Dedo optics licked yet, but they're very, very, very close with the head. Now, when it comes to the optical accessories, these are neck and neck with the Germans, okay? But in terms of the head, they're not quite there yet. So this is the unit in flood, and it's about 1.7 meters away from the wall. So you can see there's a bit of drop off on the edges, but it's a very consistent, even beam. Now, this is the unit in spot, and this is where it compares realistically to a Dedolight. As you can see, it's very clean beam edges and a very concentrated beam. Now, to give you some idea of the optical control, this is the barn door slash. Let's just do a bit of a shootout between these 2 units. All right, so just to set the expectations, this unit costs $420. This one costs $3,000. Okay, so let's have a look at which one's brighter. They're both running at 100%. Now, also, this one has a 30-watt engine. This one has a 90-watt engine. So let's have a look. Okay, so they look pretty even, but one of them actually is brighter by about 1.5%. It's the Godox. So what happened there? This is 30 watts and that's 90 watts. What happened? How come this thing was actually brighter? Well, let's explain how the Dedolight works. This is the bicolor DLED Turbo 7. So this unit here only has one LED light engine, okay, 30 watts, daylight only. This unit has a daylight engine and a tungsten engine miniaturized into the same space. So that miniaturization not only costs a fortune, but it comes at an energy efficiency price as well. So basically, it's not as energy efficient. That's the trade-off with bicolor when you get into miniaturization. The next thing a lot of you are going to want to know is the unit flicker-free? And I'm going to say yes. So that's not the usual definitive answer that I give. But usually when I take a flicker reading, I use a meter. and this light was confusing my meter. So the meter was either saying that the light is DC, or it would sometimes say that the light was 13.9 kilohertz. So it can't be both. So, and that's regardless of where I had it on the dial. So it would either read as DC or 13.9 kilohertz. Now DC is totally flicker free. 13.9 kilohertz is not a fast enough pulse rate to be flicker free. So I don't know how this thing's generating its light, but however it's doing it, it's confusing the meter. So I decided to go to a more foolproof way of seeing if it's flicker free, and that was to use the rolling shutter in my mobile phone and see if I can capture flicker using this. So this first photo is taken at 23,550th of a second. So that's 23,550th of a second. And as you can see, there is no flicker here. So I don't know what was going on with the meter. I'd test the meter against other lights, and it was testing absolutely correct. And then when I test on this light, I'd get conflicting information. So this must be using some new method of generating flicker-free light, but whatever it is, I cannot get any flicker on camera. Now, before we get around to having a look at the accessories, let's finish off the technical review and cover the information that I haven't already covered. Okay, so here are the individual CRI scores running at 100%. And at 100% brightness, here is the color graph. Now, when you drop the unit from 100% brightness down to 50% brightness, there are some subtle changes. The CCT drops from 5,610 Kelvin down to 5,571. The RF, which is the color vector score, drops from 92 to 91. And there are some very subtle number differences on the individual CRI scores. Now, I totally forgot to take a measurement on the brightness. So I'm going to do that when I wrap up. Here is how bright the unit is at 3 meters. All right, so let's start talking about the accessories now. But before we do, I've got a Dedolight set up here, and I've got the Godox set up. Let's do a shootout and have a look. So let's spin it around and see what we get. All right, let's check for chromatic aberration. Okay, so what I'm going to do is defocus this forwards and see if we get any aberration here. Okay, I'm going to call that as no aberration. There's a fraction of some about here, but you've really got to be looking for it. I'm going to call that as none. That's really good optically. And let's have a look at the Godox. But actually pretty much identical. At the same point, there's a fraction of purple, but you'd really have to be looking for it. But incredibly good optics on both of the units. Incredibly good optics. All right, so I think it's safe to assume there that when it comes to optical accessories, the Chinese have crashed the party, so they can make the stuff now. So when it comes to the accessories. Now, remember earlier in the video I said that the Dedolight has slightly better optics? Well, the interesting thing is, if you take this accessory and stick it on the Dedolight, it actually works better. So let's look at the barn doors as the first set of accessories. So when you buy the light, it comes with a set of barn doors, but you can also buy the barn doors separately. Now the barn doors are 8 leaf, so that basically means that these smaller barn doors are adjustable. So where that is handy is if you're trying to contain your light in a slash, for example, you can put the smaller barn doors inside the bigger barn doors, and then when you press down on the bigger barn doors, the smaller barn doors collapse in. So basically helping maintain any spill light from the sides. The other thing I really like about these barn doors is they have little gel clips on them. So that's super handy. Now, what I use those gel clips for is diffusion only. So if I'm diffusing the light, I'll clip the gel over there. If I'm coloring the light using color gels, I will put that in the slot here. That way I can color the light and then do barn door adjustments without having to fight the gel. Speaking of gels, they also have a couple of gel kits available. So this one is all of your color correction gels. So it has all of your CTOs, all of your CTBs, and all of your plus and minus greens. So that's a good little kit if you're starting out. This will enable you to match into all of your location lighting. The other kit of gels that you can get is your effects gels. So it's got things like bastard ambers, straws, flames, golden ambers, primary blue, things like that. So that's a good little kit. So it's only loose change, that's worth buying. Next up is a softbox. Really well built, really good quality. Comes with a grid. Now the diffusion is what looks like half grid cloth, so you've got half grid cloth on the front, and you've also got an inner baffled option of half grid cloth. There is no full grid or no real dense diffuser for the front, so my only criticism of that is if you're using this for, say, product photography or product cinematography, you might, if you get it in reflection, you might see the hotspot in the light source, so that'd be my only criticism. But as a hair light or a backlight or something like that, or even, I suppose, worst case scenario, key light, not bad if it's going to be part of your interview kit. One thing I do like about it is it has minimal spill. So the back is closed off really, really well. So as you can see there, no stray light coming out of the back of the unit at all. And the grid is doing or the crate is doing a really good job of containing the beam. Let's have a look at it without the crate on. So the crate does give it some control, and once again, not that expensive, and also compatible with your Dedo lights. Next up is the Scrim kit. I'm going to be buying 6 of these. Really, really handy. Now, the only problem I've got with the Scrim kit is the bag. You can't actually mount the bag to the stand in any way. So that's a bit of an oversight, because I like to have my Scrim kits with the lights all the time for quick adjustment. But putting that aside, basically you get five Scrims or 5 wires. So this is basically how they work. They reduce your light level. So your denser ones, the ones with more wires in them, they're usually 1 f-stop, and your less dense ones are usually half an f-stop. So it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, but that's usually the case. All right, so let's do a quick check here. Let's chuck them into the light and see if they add any texture, because if you've got good Scrims, they shouldn't add too much texture. I don't expect to get any texture, by the way, because it's such a small light source. So there, it didn't add any texture to the beam. So let's get the half stop in. Let's make sure that doesn't add any texture. So there you go, no problem at all there. The other Scrims basically give you other options on control. So you've got basically half a Scrim. So you can graduate your light. That's really handy if your light's going down a wall and the part of the wall closest to the light is too bright. These come in handy for that. So you can graduate part of the beam. And one thing I really like, I've always wanted to have one of these but can never afford it, is a 3-section Scrim, so basically going in thirds. So that enables you to graduate the light going up the wall. Now let's get into the projection mount and its accessories. All right, so basically how this thing works is you've got a couple of lenses here which focus the light into this section. This is basically your projection chamber. And then you've got a lens on the front which you can change, and this lens basically focuses whatever is in here forwards. So if you've got something like a Gobo pattern, you put it in here, and this front lens then throws that forward. So let's stick it on. All right, so basically your front lens here does your focusing. Now, also your, just very quickly, your flood spot, you use that to adjust the evenness of your light beam, or to creatively change the evenness of your light beam. All right, next up, let's have a look at their Gobo holder. So basically when I bought this, it was jammed. I couldn't get it apart. So if that happens on yours, the quick fix I did is I unscrewed the stick and then basically blasted some WD-40 into the hole, and then pretty easily after that it came apart. So basically the Gobo holder basically unwinds, so it's threaded, and you can put your Gobos into here. So let's talk about the next thing they have, which is their Gobo kit. I wouldn't bother with their Gobo kit. It's pretty ordinary. So you've got fire, that's pretty subtle, that's going to look realistic. You've got this, I think it's meant to be a star pattern. You've got the moon, you know, that's going to convince the audience that that's a moon. You've got this sort of sun pattern. So if you're doing like a, I don't know, a kindergarten play, I think these are great. You have, I think that's syphilis under a microscope, I'm not sure what that is. But they do actually have one that you might use, and that's a dapple. But hey, look, if the price is right, if you like those patterns, maybe buy it. but I would give that, seriously give that a miss. And what I would do is I would go to roscoe.com and I would have a look at M-size Gobos. There's hundreds of them. All right, so that's a Venetian blind, for example. They've got hundreds. But what we're going to do is have a look using a square one. I use this as a test Gobo. So we're going to use this to see if there's any concaving or convexing in the lens. So let's chuck this in, basically wind it up. So thread it up. It's a beautiful little holder. Got to say, I really do like that. Okay, and let's drop it into the projection part. And there is a little pressure plate here that holds this in. So let's drop it in. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's fade our lights down. So the front lens does sharpness. And have a look at that. So basically, looking at that, it is incredibly sharp. I don't see any aberration, and there's no convexing or concaving. So nothing's bending in or bending out on any of the lines. That's fantastic. Now, if you want to go wider, you can buy another lens. So let's swap this lens out. Now, this is the standard lens that comes with it. You can opt to not get a lens, but this is the 85mm. And so this is the lens here, and this is an adapter. So basically, the other lenses are bigger. So let's go to a wider lens. The lenses come in nice little bags. This is, I think it's a 63mm lens. So let's have a look. Yep, 63mm. So let's chuck that in, and that'll give us a wider pattern. All right, so let's have a look at that. Let's fade the lights out. Now, here's the thing. So this is brighter in the center than it is on the outsides. So let's take it off this and chuck it onto the Dedolight and see if that makes a difference. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so that's where the difference in the Dedolight optics, the superior optics on the head, really make a difference. This unit works really, really good with the Dedo optics. Now, in this bag is something I've always wanted for my Dedo kits, but I could never justify buying up until now. Telephoto lens. So basically what this is for is throwing your projection a long way away. Now, have a look at how much brighter that is, because basically the light is being super concentrated. So the first time you see a small light like a 30-watt LED throw a light source a long way away with a telephoto lens, it blows your mind because you think a small light source shouldn't be able to throw light that far. But it's amazing. So hopefully if it gets darker later on and I'm still awake and can be bothered, I'll terrorize the neighbors a little bit with it. All right, so the interesting thing with this, the optical quality on this is, let's get this to minimum focus. Now, I've got to say, it's a little bit tight in the barrel. So I think there's one coat of paint too many. So I reckon it'll wear in. So that feels like minimums. Most telephoto lenses, yeah, your minimum distance that you can work with is quite a fair way away. But with this unit, there's minimum focus there, and that's really sharp. So then there's no no fraying or aberration on that. That's amazing. Oh, there's a little bit there when you defocus backwards, a little bit of green, but you know, that's amazing that you can work that fine a detail in close with this lens. So I think we've covered everything here. The last thing to talk about is the iris. Okay, so basically this is an 18-leaf iris. This is a lot of fun to play with. Now, if you have an iris or you're going to buy an iris, I've got a very quick tip for you because I've had so many of these destroyed on rentals. And that is, don't store it like this. Store it with the blades tucked away. Nothing can damage it because the blades are very delicate foils. Okay, so basically what this is for, in case you haven't figured it out, basically drop it into the projection chamber, and that controls the size of your beam. Have a look at that. All right, so that's pretty much everything done with this kit. So I've learned a lot doing this video. One thing I did learn is I thought I didn't have any prejudice with equipment. And when I got this kit, the Godox and all the accessories, I honestly expected it to be total crap because made in China and cheap. Okay, I thought it'd be total crap. Despite the fact that I own lots of Chinese manufactured lights, I still had a bit of prejudice. And I think the other thing I've learnt is don't pay attention to brand names. This is not really that known a brand name, and it is superb quality. Now, where I think this is fantastic, if you're a young gaffer starting out and you can't afford the Dedo lights, okay, but you can afford this is great because this will get you started, and you can buy all these awesome accessories to go with it because these are affordable. And then when you upgrade to the Dedo light, you've got a kit of awesome accessories. I'm Andrew Locke. See you on the next episode of Gaffering Gear.